Rafaela even fun. To Maria Takai. It works. So maybe at the end, I will call. Yeah. And you are reading his comment on behalf of Susan. Thank you. You translate it. Oh. That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you should. Okay. It's chilly. I'll look that one. Okay. I'll look that one. Okay. I'll look that one. Okay. So what is the going to tomorrow? I don't know. I didn't print it out and look at it. I looked at it. It's going to be like 12. I think I put something on the list for 2, but it's on one day.
Oh, dude.
Definitely have to stop. No, but I don't think we print it out. Now that it's clear. I mean, when I went to print out stuff the other day, they take all the stuff off the copier center. Oh. Then I turned around to use the keyboard, and there was so much stuff piled on it, I couldn't get to it. So I just gave up at that point. Or you, that's he's got that stuff up there. Years and years ago, we thought we might. I got serious about no, we're not. I'm sorry. That room, you wanted to have it with something. It was on the computer and everything. Yeah, I can keep it up. And this is where I think yeah, he does. Oh, yeah. I don't even go in there and try anything. I just don't know my stuff. And that's the one that you scored me. Because I ended up yeah.
This was Steve Byers.
Oh, with the, I think it was, yeah, if they does, yeah, because I really want to go to the.
So you know these things, so we're going to talk about like why does this new book behind me? Why did this new book come out of that?
マイクチェック、マイクチェック。あ、
触っちゃいけない。無理ちゃいけない。あ。
So I ended up authors reading from this thing like a short I thought about went to, I also at the same time studied
a bed to facets because my film major books are not open. Some of them I'm like, do you really need to read Sergei Eisenstein's film formula? And they have like a little in there, like, oh, yeah, these songs and books, so I don't even know. So I take my books to This one is the one that they told you last year. Yeah. Yeah, although it probably was less crowded. Yeah, you can touch it. Some frozen might be fine. But remind me before you. Well, they probably. I don't know if they registered it or not. If they didn't, I'm not sure.
You guys are good about getting a lot of
Yeah, I mean, I have like no plans to do it. Some of those I certain ones I thought,
This latest one, it's like they sort of stopped it and they went to auction. I just don't read it. It's so much into sort of the Lovecraft community, and thinking like Lovecraftian monster who's known with the British government. It did have a great short story. I think where it takes place in Hello Kitty.
I read the unicorn. Some ebooks.
Trying to
No, I really don't hope it all. Yeah, pretty cool.
We need more.
Wrapped itself around an earring. Oh, that happens. Yeah, these are don't get wrapped. Yeah, wrapped through my ear. Which ones are the? Oh yeah. Oh, I know. I have something like that. Shake them by your Yeah, usually I wear them. So if I'm going out, you know.
So, we're ideally at job. And they'll be retired. This is you're ever get into the books and tapes or things like that?
I don't care all that much, but I know. The library is got some. And I don't, I'll see what I've never been in it. I've passed it. I don't know how many times. But there's somebody else before me. I mean, they're
Paying attention to goddamn work.
that's all. Yeah, that's why I'm coming to the theater and stuff again. No, Karen, she gave me a ticket to stay to December. She was like, oh, that's right, you guys saw it. Yeah. How was that? That was great. They're good. I knew one of their, I'm sure no, this is really good. Jarvis was just person himself. He was, mistaken station, because I had never been there before.
Yeah.
Not close. Oh, not that close. There's one where is it? I don't know. If I walk to the train station, where's the Oakwood Train? Oh, okay. So it's somewhere between, what's that next street on the set? Yeah, Michigan and then, yeah, yes, I think that's it. If you up on Street. I mean, yeah, I can take it. No, it wasn't. I saw there's something on here. Shake Shack. Oh, that I there's also one on Michigan too. Yeah, I like Shake Shack. Okay. So that every time I come, the song that I know in that maybe that is just something. Where if it says Shake Shack, it's not a brush street. Oh, there's one in the shop at Burger. That's probably it. You know, I think that must be it, yeah. That's also where oh, what? No. Oh. What is it like here? What's the what about the what about the new station?
Okay, so let us start our panel on science fiction in Japan. And all of us represent science fiction and fantasy writers of Japan. And my name is Takayuki Tatsumi, science fiction critic and professor emeritus of Keio University. And Mari Kotani is a noted science fiction and fantasy critic. And Mr. Osawa is a specialist of AI and technology and associate professor of Keio University. So today, three of us are panelists. And the first half of this panel will focus on Japanese science fiction in translation, as you see in this PowerPoint. But the latter half will be kind of announcement of the results of Seiun Award, the Japanese equivalent of Hugo. So then, let me start. So this is a top page, and probably most of you might be very familiar with Japanese manga and anime in translation, especially in the wake of Cool Japan. But maybe most of you might want to know what's going on with Japanese science fiction novels and short stories in translation. So then, so that's just why I would like to start with Japanese science fiction, especially novels in translation. So Japanese science fiction, especially contemporary Japanese science fiction, started in the 1950s. Most of you remember that Japanese faced a famous monster film, Godzilla, was created in 1954. And the first Japanese science fiction fanzine, Uchujin, the cosmic dust, was inaugurated in 1957, and the first Japanese commercial science fiction monthly called Hayakawa's Science Fiction Magazine was inaugurated in December 1959. So the 50s is very meaningful in Japanese science fiction. And then Kobo Abe published Inter-Ice Age 4 in 1959. And Kobo Abe is sometimes comparable with Kafka or Beckett, but he also published hardcore science fiction, like Inter-Ice Age 4. So then he's a kind of a grandfather of contemporary Japanese science fiction. So, and Kobo Abe is very well known for being a perennial candidate for Nobel laureate in literature. So we're very sorry he passed away, but anyway, yeah, he was a great figure. And Chicon8 Hoshi is the creator of the genre called short story, not short story, but much shorter story. And he published a bunch of short story collections, but especially the whimsical robot, Kimagure robot, is available in English. And Sakyo Komatsu is maybe the greatest figure in Japanese science fiction, and his earliest story novels included Virus. But actually, the Japanese original title is Fukatsu no Hi. Fukatsu no Hi means the day of resurrection. But after it was made into a movie produced by Kadokawa publishers, so it came to be known, especially in the United States, as Virus, because it deals with a kind of pandemic and how pandemic caused a kind of total nuclear war. So that's just what we are threatened, just what threatens us right now. So then, we should reread Komatsu once again. And then Yasutaka Tsutsui is a kind of he has a very slapstick style and metafictional avant-gardist, but very popular in Japan. And his omnibus stories called Kazoku Hakkei is translated as What the Maid Saw. This maid is kind of Esper, so she has the ability of telepathy, so she can read others' mind. So then, what the maid saw might be a kind of pastiche of Henry James' novel called What Maisie Saw, I think. And then Ryu Mitse is really a wonderful novelist of the first generation, and his famous novel, 10 Billion Days and 100 Billion Nights. So it has a translation from High Castle Publishers in San Francisco. And the editor of High Castle said that this novel sold much better than other titles available from High Castle. So this metaphysical space opera is featuring Jesus Christ and Buddha and Mahomet as a kind of cosmic heroes. And then Yoshio Aramaki is kind of Japanese new wave speculative fictionist. And he's just like the Japanese version of J.G. Ballard or Brian Aldiss. And he published a bunch of wonderful short stories as well. But his major work called Shinseidai, The Sacred Era. And this is available from the University of Minnesota Press. So University of Minnesota Press has a kind of a lineup called Parallel Futures. And this lineup includes a bunch of attractive titles from Japanese science fiction. And Chiaki Kawamata's The Death Sentences is also from the University of Minnesota Press. And this novel is the winner of the 5th Japan Science Fiction Grand Prize. And very lately, the University of Minnesota Press told me that in the near future, this novel will be made into a movie. Okay. And then Japanese science fiction writers include a bunch of talented female manga artists. So, one of them is Moto Hagio, and she published a bunch of science fiction and fantasy manga works, but her major work is Po no Ichizoku, the Po clan, featuring a couple of boys called Edgar and Alan. Very interesting. And maybe since Mari is a close friend of Hagio-san, so could you say something about?
She's genius. I respect her very much. Very, very beautiful.
And,
So, yeah.
And very lately, she started writing a sequel to the Po clan. So then the Po clan is expanding its world. And Baku Yumemakura is one of the bestseller writers. And his major work called A Lion Eating the First Quarter Moon, which is the winner of the Japan Science Fiction Grand Prize, but its translation is not available. But simultaneously, he kept publishing a bunch of popular novels including the Psychic Diver series. So in Japanese, we call it Psycho Diver, whose idea is comparable with, for example, Paul Di Filippo's short story called Skin Twister, a kind of a typical cyberpunk story. But Paul Di Filippo published Skin Twister in 1986, I think. So then Psychic Diver series by Yume Makurabaku is much earlier than Paul Di Filippo. Might be a kind of coincidence between American cyberpunk and Japanese cyberpunk, I think. And Mariko Ohara is another cyberpunkish writer, and her Hybrid Child is the winner of Japan Science Fiction Grand Prize in 1990. And this novel is also available in English from the University of Minnesota Press. So, my friend Rachel Cordasco very highly appreciated this novel. So then probably some of you might be familiar with Mariko Ohara. And Mari, would you say something? Mariko.
She is another genius.
Yeah, maybe Mariko Ohara might be a kind of psycho-feminist writer. And Chohei Kanbayashi is just in Mariko Ohara's generation, and he's a hardcore science fiction writer, especially featuring a kind of artificial intelligence, like this weapon, so high-tech weapon called Yukikaze. So, Mr. Osawa, so would you say something about?
Yes, so I'm also studying about the relationship of AI and the science fiction, and Yukikaze is kind of the example that's a combination of the high AI skills and the kind of the neurodiversity protagonist, and that makes some kind of expansion of the cognitive ability. But the protagonist is thinking about what is the real themselves, the intelligence is, and that's the theme of the Yukikaze.
Yes, thank you. And Issei Ogawa is another distinguished writer, and he won recent Japan Science Fiction Grand Prize with a kind of very long novel. But his translation is, his works, one of his major works translated into English is this one, The Next Continent. But original title is The Sixth Continent. So then there is a difference from the original and the translation, but by the sixth continent, Ogawa means moon. So then he considers moon to be a kind of sixth continent, and he really wanted to revive the fever for space exploration, and in his novel he tried to feature a company just attempting to build a kind of wedding, the palace for wedding, and this a kind of wedding couple can get married on moon. This is a kind of new incentive to space exploration. So this is a very funny story. And Project Ito, whose Japanese name is pronounced like Ito Keikaku, is a really post-cyberpunkish writer, and his novel Genocidal Organ, published in 2007, is available from High Castle publishers in San Francisco. And this is really intriguing novel, and it's very regrettable that Project Ito passed away in 2009, only several years after he made a debut. But his novels are still very influential. So then, Mr. Osawa, would you give some comments?
Yes, so the Project Ito is actually very impactful for the young writers, and some critics say that the Japanese science fiction is categorized before the Project Ito and after the Project Ito. So that's a
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so then Hirotaka Tobi. He's another distinguished writer of speculative fiction, and since he was born in 1960, Tobi was influenced by American new wave writers like Roger Zelazny or Samuel Delaney and James Tiptree Jr. So then his major work is The 1,000-Year Beach, which is also available from High Castle publishers, and this is a completely AI-dominated world. So he's also the winner of Japan Science Fiction Grand Prize. And Taiyo Fuji is a kind of comparatively new talent, but he made his debut with Jim Mapper almost 10 years ago, so 2013. So, but after that, he could win Seiyun Awards and the Japan Science Fiction Grand Prize, and his another novel called Orbital Cloud was translated into English from High Castle publishers. So then Taiyo Fuji also served as president of Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of Japan. So then I think some of you must have been aware of his talk through Zoom at this convention, I think. He planned to attend the Chicon8 in person, but he just connected with Chicon8 through Zoom. And then this is the latest winner of the Japan Science Fiction Grand Prize. And Yoshinaga Fumi is a very talented female manga artist. And from these cover illustrations, you could very easily assume this must be a kind of historical manga. And actually, this is a very long series, Oku, which is translated as inner chamber of Tokugawa shogunate. Is foregrounding a kind of alternate history of shogun family, but it's trying to describe a kind of gender bending experiment with the history of Tokugawa shogunate. So then it appealed to a bunch of fans of alternate history and feminist science fiction. So then, Mari, could you give some comments on Oku?
Oku is very so great fiction, and so we know Oku is known at the shogun harem during the Edo period. Yoshinaga depicted a world of gender reversal in which the male population was reduced by 30% due to an epidemic of disease in the Edo period. The shogun was transformed into a woman, and the harem into a world of men. So in Japan, Yoshinaga-san is very famous boys love manga artist. so and Oku is another harem of men. So gender difference asymmetrical. So just because the gender reversal itself doesn't mean that the real world will be the opposite world. So Takayuki said, when it first started, Oku was thought to be an alternate historical science fiction, but at the end of the story, it connected to the real historical world, making the reader wonder, maybe there really was such history, maybe as if revealing a hidden historical world. So female shogun portrayed a problem that is similar to a worry of modern women who are working but have to handle childbirth. In addition, while the men who gather in the inner chamber are drawn to a fate of living as stallions, and they never know when they will get sick and die. Like the issue of gender differences, it was highly prized for the capturing and reconstructing the Edo period, when it's not so well known, in great detail and dramatizing the deep speculative contents in an approachable manner というわけです。
Okay, so anyway, it started in 2004, and at that point, only its first volume was available. So it ended up with 19 volumes last year. But when its first volume was out, it was given the Sense of Gender Award. So could you introduce Sense of Gender Award?
Sense of Gender Award is a sister award of James Tiptree Jr. Award, just an otherwise award. 吉永さん 's org got Sense of Gender Award 2005 org already got Sense of Gender Award special award, but last year they the volume was out and the org was completed successfully. So and Japanese typically Japanese sense of gender team decide making special category sense of gender
Hall of Fame.
そうだ。Sense of Gender Hall of Fame Award. それで吉永さん、吉永さんが that award.
Okay. And yeah, for more information, please read the following books. Just like so, Monkey Brain Sushi is the early anthology of Japanese science fiction, which was out in the late 1989. And the Full Metal Apache is my own book, available from Duke University Press. And probably the first companion to Japanese science fiction might be Robot Ghosts and Wired Dreams, edited by Christopher Bolton and Istvan Chicheri-Ronai and me, available from the University of Minnesota Press. And High Castle Publishers, I mentioned several times, also published a very ambitious anthology called Future is Japanese, including not only Japanese science fiction writers like Enjo To and Project Ito, but also Anglo-American writers like Pat Cadigan and Bruce Starling. So then all of them are available in English. So then, and very lately, so Rachel Cordasco, a distinguished reviewer of science fiction and speculative fiction, published this book called Out of the World. So this is a kind of companion to speculative fiction in translation. So then actually she wrote a long introduction and edited a bunch of chapters, and I contributed a chapter on Japanese speculative fiction to this book. But anyway, if you would like to know kind of what's going on in world speculative fiction, this book should be very strongly recommended. And Out of the World is available from the University of Illinois Press, I think. University of Illinois Press, I think. And then, well, at this point, let me also introduce a scene from the latest Japan Science Fiction Convention held in Fukushima, the very city that was stormed by nuclear disasters almost 12 years ago, but it got recovered. So then this year's Japan Science Fiction Convention took place in Fukushima last month. and then these kind of clips from that convention, and I and Mari also attended that convention through Zoom. And the photo on the right side is a kind of a ceremony of a variety of awards, and especially this photo shows the ceremony of this year's Sense of Gender Award. As Mari already mentioned, this year's Sense of Gender Hall of Fame Award went to Yoshinaga Fumi's work, but the winner of the Sense of Gender Award itself is different. So could you explain?
Yes. The 2021 SOG Award goes to the first lap of Angle VR, written by Oyok Tomoko-san.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in Japanese, it's called VR おじさんの初恋. VR おじさんの初恋. I'm not sure if VR おじさんshould be translated as Uncle VR correctly, but anyway, VR also of course means virtual reality.
Yes, virtual reality. This story is about a middle-aged man who lives a modest life and falls in love with a girl with a strange personality when he is in VR using a cute girl avatar. The other girl is actually an avatar of a middle-aged man. The man character's grandson also joined this. The boy is a gamer, and his role is to look at the romance between two men in the VR world from an objective point of view. Through the obfuscation of gender difference between the real world and the VR world, modern men's sense of gender differences is considered along with issues of lookism and ageism.
Thank you. Well, maybe this manga might be the first gender-bending narrative in metaverse.
Metaverse. Yes.
Okay, so then, well, finally, we could have the opportunity to announce the result of Seiun Awards. So, since COVID-19 prevented us from attending World Science Fiction Convention in the past 2 years, so then I like to announce the result of Seiun Awards in 2020 and 2021, so both. So then first I'm announcing the result, and then so after that I would present the award to some of the winners. Okay, so in 2020 the winner or best foreign novel in translation goes to Tsusin Liu's The Dark Forest, the second volume of the three-body trilogy. And this was translated by so this novel was published in Japan from Hayakawa publishers and translated by Toya Tachihara and Nozomi Omori and others. So 4 people translated this novel. And of course, on the right side, you could see the photo of Tsuxin Liu, and on the left side, you can see the headshot of Toya Tachihara, who is the winner of Japan Science Fiction Grand Prize last year, and she concentrated on introducing the cutting edge of Chinese science fiction to Japan. So then her activities were very highly appreciated. So then, this is the best foreign novel in translation. And the 52nd thing was best foreign short story in translation goes to Alastair Reynolds, Zima Blue. And Zima Blue is included in this anthology, originally edited by Hashimoto Teruyuki. And the title of this anthology in Japan is called The Best Science Fiction of the 2000s. So, the editor included Zima Blue in this anthology, and it was very highly appreciated. So then translated by Naoya Nakahara. Naoya Nakahara is also very well known for being the translator of Martha Wells. So then Alastair Reynolds doesn't attend Chicon8, so then so I only announced the result. And then let me move to the 53rd Sing Awards. Well, best foreign novel in translation goes to Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary, and translated by Kazuko Onoda. And Andy Weir is very popular in Japan. So, the author gave us a message. So let me read. Andy Weir says like this, quote, "It's a pleasure and an honor to win this award again. Arigato, Nihon." Yeah. So because Andy Weir's Martian also won the same award several years ago. And then best foreign short story in translation goes to James Alan Gardner's The One with the Interstellar Group Consciousness. So included in John Joseph Adams edited Federations, and the Japanese edition of Federations is this one, available from Sogen 新社、東京草原社。So I I misspelled not Hayaka, but Sogen, Tokyo Sogen Show, and translated by Chihori Sada. And James Alan Gardner gave us a very good message. So let me read James Alan Gardner quote. My great thanks to John Joseph Adams for inviting me to contribute to the Federation's anthology and giving me feedback that helped make the story better. Also, great thanks to Chihori Sada, who clearly did an excellent job of translating the story for Tokyo Sogensha publishers. Great thanks to those who recommended my story to be on the ballot with so many other wonderful works. Great thanks to everyone who voted this year and to the organizers of the Seiun Awards for doing the demanding job of administration. Finally, great thanks to all the writers of silly romantic comedies for creating a rich trove of cliches that I could steal from in order to write an ominous story about galactic scale love, unquote. Yeah, so very long and passionate message. So then I like this very much. Okay, so then James Alan Gardner couldn't show up this time, but very fortunately this time for Tsusin Liu's The Dark Forest, so Miss Rafaela even Fan, UC Riverside graduate student, is coming here to receive the award on behalf of Tsusin Liu. So I would like to give her the award. うちはJapanese fan, and every winner of the 52nd Seiun Award receives this huge fan. And her name is Eun Fan. So Miss Fan receives fan.
Because it's a science fiction fan.
Yeah, of course, this fan is the kind of fan on science fiction fans. Okay, so please receive this.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
you everyone. Thank you, Professor Tatsumi, for the invitation. Ms. Liu, he wrote the acceptance speech, and I will deliver it for him. He wrote both the Chinese and English version. So I'll read the Chinese version first and go to the English one. 很高兴黑暗森林能够获奖，再次对所有为本书在日本出版社做出努力的人士表示自己诚挚的谢意，也想感谢日本的读者朋友们。在过去的40年，日本的科幻小说曾经被大量翻译到中国，在中国拥有了大量的读者。我的这本书的创作也深受小松左京先生的作品的影响。现在很高兴能够让日本读者也看到来自中国的这本科幻小说，也希望未来中国和日本在科幻文学领域能有更多的交流。我一直有一种幸运感，庆幸我能够在外星人降临我们的世界之前写完并出版这部小说。外星人的到来对人类是福是祸，现在谁都不知道，但对这部小说肯定是一场灾难。与其他科幻题材相比，外星人具有最大的不确定性。这个古老的科幻想象随着时间都可能变成现实，那时这本书中的一切将变得平淡无奇。但愿所有的灾难都被永远封闭在科幻小说中，也祝大家在正在到来的未来时光里健康幸福，万事如意。谢谢。I'm very happy that The Dark Forest won the prize. Once again, I express my sincere gratitude to those who have made efforts to publish this book in Japan. I also want to thank the readers in Japan. In the past 40 years, Japanese science fiction has been translated into China in large numbers and has gained a large number of readers in China. The trilogy of the three-body problem is also deeply influenced by Mr. Sakio Tamatsu's works. Now I am glad that Japanese readers can also read the science fiction from China. I also hope that there will be more exchanges between China and Japan in the field of science fiction in the future. I have always felt lucky that I was able to finish and publish this novel before aliens descended on our world. Whether the arrival of aliens is a blessing or a curse for mankind is unknown. But it is certainly a disaster for this novel. Compared with other science fiction subjects, aliens have the biggest uncertainty. This old science fiction imagination may become reality at any time. Then everything in this book will become just a commonplace. I hope all disasters will be sealed in science fiction forever. And I wish you health and happiness in the coming future times. Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Yeah. And so then maybe times. What time right now? Okay, so maybe it's time to get some questions or comments from the floor. Okay. Yeah.
I guess I have a question of, it seems that there are some themes like cyberpunk and VR that Japanese writers really specialize in. Why do you think that is, that it is these specific themes that are most focused on?
Yeah, so that's a good question, I think. So have you read all of William Gibson?
I've read some of them.
Okay. So I think cyberpunk was a kind of very Japanese fiction. So cyberpunk writers made use, especially in the 1980s, cyberpunk writers made use of a bunch of Japanese cliches or stereotypes, just like a ninja or a shuriken or geisha. So probably that's a kind of Fujiyama geisha, sushi, harakiri type stereotypes. But it's also true that they very correctly understood Japanese culture. For example, Gibson was writing Neuromancer as he was listening to Yellow Magic Orchestra, and Bruce Sterling was a big fan of Sandy and Sunsets. So then, they imbibed the cutting edge of Japanese pop culture. So then, Japanesque or Japan. So when Gibson paid his first visit to Japan, he said, "You are living in the future." So by you, he means the Japanese people. So then, probably two cyberpunks, Japan might have represented some aspects of the future. And then when Bruce Sterling came to Japan in 1989, so he talked about the rise of couch potatoes or nerds, not only hackers, but also couch potatoes or the rise of nerds. So then that kind of people are called otaku in Japan. And then you might be very familiar with the book called The Otaku, written by Azuma Hiroki, available from the University of Minnesota Press. And then in Gibson's novel, The Pattern Recognition, Gibson himself featured otaku. So then, so that's a kind of otaku people has a mentality very close to social withdrawal. So then, probably that kind of mentality might be very specific to Japanese. So if so, probably this kind of cyberpunk is kind of very Japanese from the beginning. Okay.
Me?
Yeah.
So I have read some Japanese novels, not really sci-fi, but like those weird thrillers, like by Edogawa Lempo, and some like monster fairy tales. I wonder, are there, because those are like the traditional or modern Japanese style of book that I think is only popular in Japan. Are there any sci-fi that kind of, I think they're pretty naturally, they can be pretty naturally translated into sci-fi or fantasy. So I wonder, are there any Japanese writers who have sci-fi fantasy works that like deeply integrated in Japanese culture, and especially those like weird thriller stuff? That I'll be very interested in.
So, also, do you have any
Yeah,
opinion?
actually, there's also cross authors through both working in the sci-fi and horror areas. Yeah, so the Makino,
Also, yeah.
Osamu Makino, for example, is on the example, and also.
Kobayashi.
Yasumi Kobayashi, yeah, is a famous writer, also famous writer, both in the science fiction and also the horror area. So that might be one kind of example. And Yasumi's novel is also based on the Japanese classic legend about the beautiful woman is died because of the two guys is chasing about it. But it also very strangely describing about the notation, because the protagonist the cognitive ability is broken, totally broken. So the storytelling is totally the time mapping to here. So it's kind of the very both in the horror color with a Japanese legend, but also very science fiction. Yeah, it's important. Unfortunately, Yasumi died in the nowadays. But yeah, so he's a great, one of the great authors.
Yeah. Hi.
Who would you say is the funniest Japanese science fiction writer? Who uses humor the most?
Humor. Well, oh yeah, so I didn't introduce that guy in this slideshow, but yeah, all of us recommend you Kusano Gengen, who received Seiyun Award several times, I think. Yeah. And yeah, Gengen is very funny, and but sometimes his imagination is really extravaganza. Yeah, very funny, and then sometimes gender bending. Yeah, funny, gender bending, and extravaganza, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah. I see. Oh, okay.
What are y'all looking forward to from Japanese science fiction in like the next year, or just
Okay, so
The question is what's
yeah. So what is our future?
our future? Okay, so it's yeah, but I think that there is nowadays there is a very young authors, both in the male authors and female authors joining on the science fiction and also the science fiction writers club. And one trend is kind of some of the mystery writer is turning into the science fiction because yeah, actually some of the mysteries are very focusing on very strange areas about what is a mystery or some kind of metafiction, and that's very close to the science fiction. And one of the direction is yeah, I don't know the name, but yes, some of the clever mystery writer is not here. And other direction might be a technical fiction because the Taiyoji is explained by Professor Tatsumi. But some of the young writer is influenced from the Taiyo very much, and especially about his technical attitude for the computer science and new technology is influenced to the young authors. And actually, for example, the Jinzo Takeda is kind of the it's a humor science fiction and also not translated, but it's very humorous. And but also he is a data scientist and writing about today's artificial intelligence technology to the story. And also the Takahiro Yasuno, but I was it. But some of these kind of things might be a next direction of the science fiction.
And what is more, so my friend Eileen Gan was sitting over there, but she had another appointment, so she left us. But she is another winner of Sense of Gender Award. Yeah, so then, that was in 2007 when Japan sponsored World Science Fiction Convention in Yokohama. And in this new book by Eileen Gan, she mentions acceptance of Sense of Gender Award. So then, now that James Tiftory Award was replaced by otherwise award, so probably Sense of Gender Award is probably one of the only gender only award for appreciating gender bending experiments in science fiction. So then maybe this is another direction. Yeah. Okay. So then, well, it's already time. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for your cooperation and participation.
So glad to the name. I'm sorry. And you showed usually 4 books that you will recommend, which is amazing. I've read that so many times. So and then I have 2 of the other 4, but I missed one. It was Monkey Brain Sushi, yeah.
And
And
book is called Full Metal Apache. Full Metal Apache.
The Japan
yes.
書道家って何て言うの？
Wonderful to meet you.
Okay. ちょっと一緒に。Okay. そうするマスク。
The projector is on your face. Do you want to? Oh, this is projected on your face.
Okay, right here. Let us unmask. Temporarily. Okay.
Oh, I just wanted to say hi.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
Will you be around tomorrow?
Yeah.
No. Tomorrow, we back to
New York?
New York,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Well,
Yeah. Thank
Lovely
you.
to see you. Have a-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. See you around.
Yes, well,
Yeah. Okay. So we are busy.
Yeah, good, yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. Yeah, nice. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Pleasure and honor to share a stage.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I may send you my email address and ask for a copy of your slides.
Okay. Of course. Yeah. I've sent it. Okay. Thank you.
Travel safely.
是怎么听说这
もう一個
个这个我一直
ちょっと君のだってチャイニーズだけだ
Let's go. Thoughts around.
そういい分の
Yeah.
once again.
Oh, once again.
Once again.
Oh.
He brought with him
Yeah.
huge fan from Japan.
Isn't every year is different?
Every year, different. So each committee decides.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
Can you just repeat the novels you guys
Thank you for
talked
coming.
to me because I couldn't catch the
Beautiful.
names.
Oh, right. Yeah, thank you for your good question.
Yeah, I actually also wanted to ask the cyberpunk.
Yeah, so-
Yeah, he already asked that.
Yeah.
So.
よく頑張りました。
Type those
いやーすごい素敵。
type those names.
じゃあどうぞ。
Yeah,
I just couldn't catch it.
Matsuno-san.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Is this also for the
Yeah. Yeah, and also the Yasumi Kobayashi. Kobayashi Yasumi. Yeah. Kobayashi is the last name. So both of the great writer, both in the core area but also in science.
Oh, that's sticky.
Are they translated?
Actually, I don't know.
Yeah,
So
that's fine, that's fine. Yeah.
might in the in China, might yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
translated to Chinese.
Yeah, might yes.
Is that also
Not
work?
in English, but yes.
Okay.
So
So are there many Japanese?
I was just wondering,
You've been to China?
Actually not so.
some of the
No,
I went to like,
No, I'm gonna go to that.
I
I was like,